Hi guys, how are you? Welcome back to my garden on a beautiful spring day, and look what arrived, a massive huge pile of wood. So this is something I need to take care of at one point, because this is all for the fireplace, because we mainly, well, pretty much we only heat the house with a fireplace. So this is why you always get to see a lot of wood at one point in my video. But you know, I was gone for 2 weeks, and sometimes leaving is a good thing, because I came back and I was like, yes, spring finally arrived. I was welcomed by the most beautiful spring blooms. Look at my back, the cherry tree. It is a cloud of white just hovering through the garden, and a lot of tulips already start and come to bloom. But what I want to do in today's video, I don't want to give you like a garden tour. I want to start planting, because you know I took you with me to the nursery in Germany, and I had a trunk load full of exciting plants, and I want to start planting obviously today. And you see I'm already walking with you to the back of a garden, because I want to start planting on a slope, and I want to start planting the Geum and the bearded iris. So I'm going to break it down to always like 2 perennials a video, how I did it last time, because then the videos are not massive long and you can just focus a little bit better on those specimens. And I also think it is a nice progression, because I showed you both of those varieties when I was with you in the garden center. So I think it's just nice to show you where I finally put them, obviously. But before I do that, I want to give you just a quick look onto this slope, because it's beautiful. It really starts coming together. First tulips are in bloom. Fritillaria persica looks stunning. I'm just looking over because I'm like, oh, this is so beautiful, especially in the evening hours when the sun is coming from your back. I get to see it also on the upper terrace there. So really beautiful. This is what I want to do with you in today's video. So hope you're excited to join me in the garden today. Guess who's happy to be back in the garden? Yesterday she was running around like crazy. She had a jolly good time, and she had her first tick again. So I was like, all right, it's time to give you something against those little bastards. But she's so happy, and I think I'm going to throw this in a second. So let me just show you the slope first, and then I'm going to play with you for a quick second. But before I show you all the beautiful spring bloom on this slope, I just want to show you 2 other things first. And you already see very random some wood pieces lying here to my right. And this is actually the hardwood floor that we used in the house. So even before I show you the house and how it looks up there, you're going to see how it looks in real. And they are all kind of like leftovers, because we put the hardwood floors in chevron. So there are a lot of those random pieces that we don't need anymore. And I thought, you know, before we just toss them, why not try and utilize them somehow, like upcycle them at least. So I put them there 2 weeks ago, just the day before I left, and they're still looking quite good, because I thought maybe there is something in them. Maybe I can do something with that. Maybe I can stain them black and try and cover up all of the beautiful landscape situation that is going on here. But before I make that decision, I'm still going to leave it there for at least another month or so, just to see if it's really worth it. The second thing I want to show you is just here to my left. And these are 3 pots with red hapanesetum that I was sowing from seed, or growing from seed. And I think that they would look so fantastic. They already started tint up, really beautiful dark red grass. And I think the beauty of it is that they just soften the edges. So if I walk out, all of those, well, landscape fabric edges, maybe eventually wood edges at one point, will be softened with a red grass just hanging over it. I think that'd be so beautiful. Then there will be the cornice behind it, the bearded iris. There's a lot of Verbena bonariensis, asters. So I feel this might be just a really nice, cheerful site how to enter the slope. But what I really want to show you is actually happening over here, and I think you get to see how much it changed just in 2 weeks. And especially here on the top layer, I am over the moon happy with whatever's going on. So this is a very nice, cheerful, tiny corner with a red acer that I was growing in a container for my Thanksgiving decoration, I believe it was. Yes, I'm sure. And then after that, I just put it out here into the landscape. It made it through winter. It looks nice. Beautiful red foliage, and then in combination with those pink tulips in the back there and the Fritillaria persica, they are just stunning. Towering long spikes, beautiful bell-shaped flowers. Couldn't be happier. They really thrive well here. And I think I really need to amp up my game with those, because they are one of those plants that give impact. They are kind of glamorous instantly, and I feel spring couldn't be any better than using those kind of plants. Then you see big drifts of pink tulips. I'm happy that I chose pink tulips here that are bright because they're so poppy and you could really get to see them from the top terrace, from the house, which is wonderful. If they were too pale, I think it might not work as well. But the only thing that kind of bothers me a little bit is the situation inside the tulips. Maybe you get to see they are yellow in the inside. And there is something that was not really on the photo on the online shop, and they're even yellow from the bottom side, obviously. So that is the one thing where I'm like, nah, I'm not so sure. I need to see if they come back next year. This is a variety called Albert Heim. They are a little bit on the shorter side, but I also put it down to the fact that we didn't have a lot of rain this year. Still, they are very cheerful, they are great, and I'm so happy with those. What happened over here on the left, there are more Persica fritillaria persica, this is how you say it. But this is a variety called Ivory Bells. And when I planted them, I should have checked the labels better because I ordered some for the front garden and I completely forgot to plant them in the front garden. They all ended up here. So I think I have 2 drifts, if I'm not wrong, of the wrong color here. So after they stop flowering and all the foliage dies back, I'm just going to dig them up and put them into the front garden. Just need to remember where they are. What makes me so happy is this rose. I have 5 of them. This is Rosa rugosa, it's Thérèse Bonnier, and I mainly planted it for its red stems, but now also seeing those dark red stems in combination with the green foliage, I think this is rather fabulous. So nice. Spring is really on its way. There's another terrace down there with more tulips. It's going to shake a little bit. What I want to do is take you with me now to the last layer of the slope because this is where I actually want to do some planting with you today. This is kind of like my testing ground for a color combination that I might do in the upper garden. So I really want to focus on all shades of peach and pale blue, kind of like purple and violet. And this is exactly what you see here. You mainly see peach right now. There are beautiful tulips, hyacinth. There are already 2 blobs of geum. And there are those really pretty bearded iris that I found in the garden center as well. But first, I just want to give you a closer look at these tulips here because I couldn't be happier with those. This is a variety called Salmon van Eyck, and they do exactly what I love in a tulip. They have very long, elegant stems, beautiful, rich, lush foliage. And then the flowers itself, they are quite simple and elegant, but they have a really nice color variegation going on. And they really have a beautiful peach look. You see a bee already flying in there. So clearly what I'm doing here is attracting insects. Also, those peach color hyacinth are really pretty. And then the geum, so in love with. I'm going to give you a closer look. But then I'm also really happy that I finally bought bearded iris with a leaf variegation because I think they're just going to bring an element of excitement. I just love the structure of bearded iris anyways, but then with the leaf variegation, it's super nice. And especially those blooms. I really love what I just discovered over the years. When the bloom for bearded iris is simple, it actually works best. Because then you really have this nice impact and a big drift. It's not trying to fight for attention with all the other blooms in your border. But let me just give you a closer look at the geum. So I'm going to plant 2 over here and then another blob of 3 over there, just next to the Caryopteris that I planted last year. And it was a little iffy if this is going to make it through winter, but it did. So excited about that. A lot of fresh growth is appearing. Some dead stems. So what I need to do is come in with my secateurs and just cut back all of those dead stems. But look at those geums. Aren't they just fantastic? This is a variety called Mai Tai. I show them to you in the garden center. And what I want to do first now is just take a moment and give you some information about geum and try and convince you that maybe you want to grow them in your own garden as well. Before I start the planting, I always like to give you a couple of key facts about the specimens just to convince you to try it out in your own garden as well. Geum is one of those plants that I never grew in my own garden, and my parents also didn't, at least not as I remember. They had geraniums, but geum was really not on my list for many years, and I still remember up until today how I actually got in touch with geum. I had a garden magazine. And in my previous job as a fashion designer, I was always traveling a lot and I spent a lot of time in China. And it was one of those moments when I was on my way back from Shanghai to Europe. And I think there was bad weather, so we sat in the plane on the tarmac, couldn't take off, and I think it took like 2 hours or even longer. And I was just reading through my magazine, and there was an article about geum. And that really caught my attention because I was like, maybe there's something in there, maybe they are kind of interesting or exciting. And it took me, I think, a total of 6 or 7 years to really knock it down to one variety that I really love. But now trying to create this area with all tones of peach and blue, I think they are just fabulous because they really come in absolute beautiful colors. This is a very soft and pale color, obviously. They also come in buttercup yellow, bright red, orange. So if you're not into these pastel colors, you definitely find something that might excite you just as well. Some key information about Geums is that they like to thrive in full sun but also partly shade, so they are actually perfect for underplanting some shrubs or trees. So pretty much they would do the same job that geraniums would do. They do flower fairly long though, so they flower from June up until August. We are in May and they're already in bloom, but I put it down to the fact that I bought these in Western Germany where it was pretty mild and warm and early this year already. So I think this is why they're already in flower, but I know next year they will come to bloom definitely in June. I don't really think that this is going to happen a lot earlier. In terms of soil, they're not very fuzzy with soil, so the normal average garden soil will be fine as long as it's not like hyper acidic, for example, but they do not like to dry out too much, so you should have an eye on the water level with them. But you know, everything is mulched in here, and I checked those areas that I watered before I left where the mulch is on it, and still they are nice and still a little bit moist, and there was just one day of a slight drizzle in the past 2 weeks here, so literally we haven't had a lot of rain, but still the mulch really holds the moisture extremely well. This variety is still a fairly new variety. It was bred in the USA, and it is so popular because it has these very big blooms that are quite special, and I totally agree. They have a very interesting color going on. I just gave you a closer look at them. I'm going to do it later on again. They really have all shades of kind of like apricot, oh, there was something, a bug, apricot, pink, a little tint of yellow. Very exciting, and this is always what intrigues me in a bloom, when you go closer and you see, oh, they're just like very delicate and pretty. Last thing that is really nice as well is the foliage. I told you I never grew them, but according to my research, they are evergreen, so even when you cut back all the stems, you're still left with a nice green dome of foliage. They do not change the color in autumn, so they don't have an autumnal color, but still having something evergreen in the garden, especially here, you know, I have an ocean of brown in winter at one point. This will be so lovely, and maybe this will be the starting point of my love affair with Geum. So let's see, I have 5 plants in total. Just try and test them out. I'm going to keep you posted, obviously. Then bearded iris. I already did a couple of videos, so I'm not going to say too much about them. I'm just going to say bearded iris are fantastic, and not only for the blooms, they're also fantastic for the structure that they provide with the leaves. Because once those flowers are gone, you still have those amazing architectural elements of those leaves in your border, and this is why I absolutely love bearded iris, and they love it here because they prefer poor soil, sandy soil, lots of drainage, full sun, all those things that I can give them. One last thing that I haven't shown you before, and I'm going to do it now, is you can tell probably here with this one that there is a spent flower here. This is the spent flower, and there is a new flower appearing here. So what you do to get rid of the spent flower is you just come in your border normally with your finger and just break it off like this. It comes off very easily, and then this can go straight onto the compost heap, not into Alfie's mouth eventually, and the new flower can just open and nothing is in its way, which is really fantastic. Normally when you buy bearded iris, Alfie still saw the flower head. She's still, whatever comes out of my head is interesting for her. And normally when you buy bearded iris, most dealers, they would just send them bare rooted basically. Here they come in a container, and this is so easy because you immediately see how to plant them. The rhizome is buried half into the soil, and then the top half is exposed to the fullest sun. And this is why I put them in the furthest corner out there in your bag, because this is the area that gets most of the sun. So excited about them. All I'm going to do now is start planting. And when I do the planting, especially for the Geum, what I do is I just improve the soil just in the planting area. I come in with my shovel and I just scoop off a little bit of the native soil, come in with fresh soil straight from the bag, some hands full of organic bone chips just for a starting fertilizer, so that the roots develop better, so that these can root in really well. First, some fibrous roots are coming out at the base of the pot already. And I check them in the garden center. They have really strong and good root systems. So one thing I always tell you, tip it over, check it how it looks. Very nice, a little bit pot bound, so I think I'm just going to break them loose a little bit, but this is still looking fairly good and nice. Nothing is rotted inside, so they are absolutely glorious little plants. And then I plant them dead level just as they come in the containers. Alright, the Geum and the iris are planted and I really like it. And I really like it because I think they work together so well. I already told you when I was in the garden centre, and now seeing them in the ground I'm even more convinced, because the Geums, they're very whimsical. You know, they have these very delicate stems with these flower heads in this pale soft peach colour dancing in the wind. Very dreamy. I have 5 of them and now I think that I should have bought more eventually, but I just want to see how they perform and how they thrive, how they're gonna go. I know one thing for a fact, I haven't told you how high they will grow and how wide. They will grow 40 centimeters in height, which is 16 inches if I'm not wrong, and about 35 centimeters in width, which is roughly 15 inches, I think. I'm really not good at this game. So, but yeah, this is roughly so you have an idea. But what works so well is these like very nice whimsical blooms of the Geum in combination with these bigger, more impactful blooms of the iris, and also the foliage, how everything interacts together. I'm so happy and I'm really thrilled to see how this entire test area comes together. So obviously what I want to do, flip the phone and just give you one last look at it. I honestly can't wait for the year to progress and see how this entire area comes together, and especially when all the plants really kick in with some growth. So I have this really nice path kind of like leading you towards the end of this planting. You come down these stairs here, and then on both sides I put some hostas. They're still very small, they're very cheap though, they're not even coming in a container, those were bare root ones. And then next to it I have still my kale, which is bulking up and about to come to bloom, so I think I'm just going to cut it down probably in a week or so, because more planting is on its way. But obviously I just want to give you one last close look at those Geums. They are really pretty and intriguing, and I just want to show you one single bloom. I just need to provide some shadow so you can really get to see the colors. They are just beautiful. Just look at it. It's kind of like apricot, peach, yellow, everything in a single bloom. And the pollen is exposed, which is also really nice. So obviously this is brilliant for wildlife. And then a second drift just over there. Now there's a lot of peach obviously, but as I said, next year they will definitely come to bloom later. So the tulips and the hyacinth will start the show, and then the Geum is going to continue. But normally what happens here is the bearded iris, they're very early because I bought them in the garden centre. Normally when the tulips are about to fade out here in the garden, the bearded iris come to bloom. So I know that they will flower at the same time, and I think that they are the perfect combination. And I'm so happy with those iris. Also the color, beautiful. So I have a gut feeling that eventually, let's see how they thrive, let's see how they perform, but they might find their way into the upper garden as well. That's it for today's video, and what do you think? Do you like the Geums as much as I do? Because I'm so happy with them and I can't wait to give you updates on how they're going to perform, how long they're going to bloom, how they're going to look with all the other plants that I'm going to put into the border. And one last thing is, you know, I took them with me from Germany and it was so much warmer in Western Germany, obviously, to what it was here. So I left all of my plants outside on the driveway in the morning. When I came out of the house, all the Geums were almost lying flat, and I was like, oh no, I bought these really beautiful plants and now I kind of killed them, not killed them, but at least like I'm done with the flower. So I quickly watered them, carried them back here into the sun, and they bounced back immediately. So I was like, oh, they're even tough, which is ideal. So I'm so thrilled about that, and I think that they'd be very happy. They're in the sun, I've watered them in, they're mulched in. So yes, that is a good start or continuation of this border. I just want to say thank you so much for watching today's video, and I'd love to welcome you obviously in my garden, my next video. So take care guys, bye.